Bodybagz Joe Pyfer saved Dana White's Contender Series week number 1 by getting a finish over the LFA middleweight champ Ozzy Diaz. And a few days later in that week, you spring forward to UFC 277. The broadcast features Joe Pyfer. Be Joe Pyfer is the t-shirt slogan. And if you look at it on that card and on that night when Amanda Nunes won her belt back from Juliana Pena, the UFC announced that Bodybagz Joe Pyfer would be taking on Italy and North Macedonia's own Alen Amedovski. And there was a collective sound of, huh? What?
That's weird.
What are we doing here? Because for Joe Pyfer, we realized that his last loss was to Dustin Steitzfus, the guy who was sent to the Shadow Realm by Albus Magomedov not that long ago. But if you look at it for Pyfer, great wrestling, power in his hands, good low kicks, decent jab. Matt was really high on him going into week 1 of Dana White's Contender Series for him to get that win over Diaz. But it just seems like a little bit of an odd matchup considering Alen Amedovski's last win was back in 2018. In the UFC, he has lost and lost and lost again. He had taken years away between his fights. And if you look at those losses, lose to Krzysztof Jotko by a decision, a very lopsided decision where Amedovski's power punching did nothing to the outside work of Krzysztof Jotko. He lost big time in that one. Got knocked out by John Phillips, and they just decided to brawl for like 20 seconds. And who fell first? Alen Amedovski. And then his last time out against Joseph Holmes, he tried to brawl again after training at Extreme Couture for a very long time. Holmes drops him, and then he kind of gets back up, drops a little bit down. Holmes gets the back, and he had a no-hook rear naked choke off to the side where Holmes was in a bad position against the cage, and he just kind of pulled and yanked on that choke and got it against Amedovski. So, Matt, I'm going to ask you an uncomfortable question. I'm not trying to be a gotcha guy in this one. Trust me, I'm not. You're really high on Joe Pyfer going into Dana White's Contender Series. You picked Amedovski to beat Joseph Holmes his last time out. What did you like to see out of Amedovski versus Holmes that he could use against Pyfer in a matchup like this?
I don't think Joseph Holmes would beat Joseph Pyfer if they lost. That's what I really base this on. I think Pyfer is... Again, I had a decent level of confidence in him going into Contender Series because he reminds me of one of my favorite basketball players ever, Tim Duncan. What's Tim Duncan great at? The fundamentals. There's something to be said for someone who can go out there and not need a flashy style, not need a lot of spinning techniques or massive takedowns above their head to really go out there and work a really nice style. And that's what I like out of Joe Pyfer. It's basic boxing combinations. It's a decent level of power shots, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, like I said, nothing's all that flashy. It is just very effective. And for Amedovski, I thought the brawling would finally win out in his last fight. I thought finally they had given him a level of competition to where, okay, maybe he could land that power shot early. But now they're giving him a guy in Pyfer who can play that brawling game if he wants to, but he's going to do it in a much more tactical manner. He has his own takedown abilities. He can get submissions. I don't know how Amedovski's own brother, I think, would find it hard to pick him in this fight.
It's a weird matchup. Like for Joe Pyfer, first things first. Yeah, I do like the combinations. I love the lead left hook when he wants to throw it as a power shot if he's going to fight from that stance. I like the kicks that he throws. A little bit of a reset there. His hands are kind of low too, so maybe if Amedovski's able to clip him when he runs in, because that's how Amedovski fights, and that's how he wins these fights. He walks in throwing hammers, and in the UFC, he's walked out a loser 3 times. So it's unfortunate for him.
It's like if you glued the trigger of a chainsaw shut and just turned it on and put it on the ground. Like, it would just go. That's Amedovski. He just goes. There's no stopping. It's all gas and no brakes.
It really is something. I mean, he gets dropped by the knee against Joseph Holmes, and that's how he gets back up to then end up getting finished. It's been a multitude of ways, and if you look at it for Pyfer, I like the wrestling, I like the submission abilities. We talked about Daniel Gracie earlier on, Pat Sabatini, the connection, but for Pyfer, Daniel Gracie, Sean Brady was in Pyfer's corner when he won out. He said a lot of swear words, but they were all happy, and he gets the win, and he's at UFC 277. He's a big winner, so most people expect him to win this weekend. When he lost to Dustin Steitzfus, Nevada State Athletic Commission, 9-month suspension due to metabolite modulators out there. So it is what it is, but for Bodybagz, heavily favored to win this fight. Open to -300, -430 for Amedovski. Open +250, +323. Amedovski had Chris Curtis in his corners last time out. That's always fun. But again, it's a brawling style of Amedovski. It's some more technical shots, and when he's picking the power is Joe Pyfer. But I think for Pyfer, the best attribute that he has here that hasn't caused Amedovski issues in these 3 fights. Yes, Holmes finished him on the ground with a submission. I think if Pyfer went in there and took down Amedovski, he'd have an easy path to a victory.
No, and that's how I think he's going to fight this fight. I think a lot of people are going to assume Pyfer's going to show up and look for the knockout because they are just familiar with him based on the Contender Series tape. But Pyfer does employ a very high-level wrestling game. He has great top control, like we had mentioned. A lot of guys from that gym have great MMA top control. That's the thing. They're not just grapplers. They're good MMA grapplers. That's the thing about Pyfer, and I couldn't agree more with you. I really do think that's the part of his game that he's going to go to time after time because, okay, if he strikes with Amedovski, it gives Amedovski, but let's say a 30% chance to win, just land any shot. If Pyfer just wrestles, it takes that 30 and puts it down to like a 2. So for Pyfer, I really do think that there is that one defined area that he can get a win in.
It's going to sound silly, but it's like Hamzat's taking on Kevin Holland on short notice. You think Hamzat's going to strike with Kevin Holland? Better not. Better go in there and grapple. Hamzat went in there, didn't tap the glove, and decided he was going to grapple. We'll see if Pyfer employs that game plan. We look at the odds again. As mentioned, Pyfer a big favorite. We have a look at the Topology votes, Matt. I'm going to say over under 92% Pyfer.
90s. I'm going to say higher, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. 836 total votes, 94% Pyfer, 86% by decision for the 6% that have Amedovski, 59% by decision. You got to be kidding me. And 20% by knockout. If Amedovski wins, it's going to be by knockout. That's how he wins fights. They're all by knockout. He's not going to win a decision against Joe Pyfer. If it happens, I'm going to look silly, and that's a clip that lives on Old Takes Exposed on Twitter. I think Pyfer wins. I think he takes the fight to the mat and then employs his game.
Yeah, I do too. I like Pyfer's grappling a lot in this matchup. Again, even if he does choose to strike, I still favor him in this fight. It's just that does open up a window for Amedovski to climb through, so I expect Pyfer to grapple his way to a win.
Let us know if you're Chris Curtis trying to use this as rocket fuel for Alen Amedovski, because he's on this channel every now and again. Matt, both of us going with Joe Pyfer to get the win. Big time fights on this main card, including one in this division between Chidi and Joe Guani and Gregory Rodriguez. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.